A warm welcome, everyone. I'm Adeshawa Josh, and this is Africa Matters. Eastern Libya has been hit by catastrophic flooding, with entire neighborhoods swept out into the sea, while Morocco has been shaken by deadly earthquakes and aftershocks. This week, we look at the emergency response to the dual disasters in North Africa. Libya is grappling with the devastating and unprecedented flooding that has left thousands of people dead. Storm Daniel, a Category 4 hurricane, began wreaking havoc in Europe on September 4th and crossed the Mediterranean a week later. It battered the eastern coastal city of Derna, where close to 100,000 people live. 2 dams and 4 bridges collapsed, and several districts were swept underwater. Local officials say they fear that the death toll could climb to as high as 20,000.
We heard that the dam had burst and the water had flooded the area. People were asleep and no one was ready. But this is what happens. What can we do? For me, my house is next to the valley, opposite the Al-Sahaba Mosque. The whole family lives next to each other. We're all neighbors. We lost 30 people so far, 30 members of the same family. We haven't found anyone.
As the scale of the disaster unfolds, residents say there were warning signs about the risk of the dams bursting and the critical need to reinforce them. Yet no evacuation of Derna was done ahead of Storm Daniel's approach. Let's hear more about the scale of devastation from Leila Al-Mustari, a humanitarian worker. She joins me from Libya's second largest city, Benghazi. Thank you so much for making the time to speak to Africa Matters. Please talk us through the latest on the rescue effort and the humanitarian situation in Derna.
Okay, the least thing that I can describe the situation in Derna is to be catastrophic. People are seeking for all types of humanitarian assistance, and indeed we are devastated that there were no emergency plan and there were no evacuation. People, they were not aware about the scale of this catastrophe and for this disaster. Generally speaking, that I have received calls from my family and neighbors and other people. Like the stores are there are no open stores, and people are seeking for chronic medications and for even the mental health medications that there is a serious lack of these needs. What I can say is Derna is a desperate need for immediate humanitarian assistance. We're requiring urgent medical supplies, including chronic and psychiatric medications to safeguard the health and the well-being of our community. The psychological support from the trauma, it's very important and crucial in these events.
Trying to process the amount of humanitarian aid and support that the people need, and it's sometimes very hard to prioritize. So what would you say the people need the most now? Is it food? Is it medical supplies? Is it clothing? Is it a roof over their head? What would you say it is? And how soon do you want the international community or anyone else who is listening and watching this program right now to step in and help the government?
The need is immediate. People need an immediate response, especially in terms of sheltering. There are people who had lost their houses, and there are complete neighbors that they have been swept from the floods. So this is the most immediate need for people who are alive and safe. And there are other people that they are looking for a good news to find their beloved people, and this urgent response. As what I understand, there are already teams from Turkey and from Italy that they are searching for lost people. But this is the second need, and to save who could be saved, because as what I understand and heard yesterday, that they found live people under these houses. So this is the immediate need, and sheltering is the most needed thing right now because people are in this like sleeping in the public schools, and that they're not prepared to shelter all of that big number of families.
Yeah, that's interesting, Leila. And you did mention that for those who are alive, it's shelter. For those whose loved ones, lost their loved ones, it's more or less about closure. I watched a video a couple of minutes ago before I came on the show, and for some people, it's just to be able to bury their dead, rescue them, pull the bodies out from under the rubble. What has been done to help some of these people, especially those who are still looking for their loved ones? Or perhaps if help comes on time, they could save them.
As what I understand, that there are emergency rescue teams that they are working in the ground. They are only writing some lists from like the public hospitals, from the dispensaries in the city, and they are sharing these lists online by Facebook and like other social media. But this is not enough. Like it's not organized, and it's not enough. There is no mechanism and there is no specific team that they're doing this job. Like it's still things, because it is an emergency, and things that they're not really organized, and we do not have an emergency response plan for such an event, but for such a catastrophe. But this is the way that the rescue team, that they communicating with other families. They only sharing some lists on social media.
Leila Al-Mustari, we're going to have to leave it there, a humanitarian worker. Thank you so much for all the good work that you're doing. We wish you good luck. We'll keep an eye on the story both here on Africa Matters and on TRT World. Thank you for speaking to us.
Yeah, thank you.
Staying in North Africa, we head to Western Morocco, which is still reeling from a magnitude 6.8 earthquake that struck the country over a week ago. Rescue teams continue the search for survivors, but hopes of finding any more survivors are fading, and the tens of thousands of people displaced by the disaster are worried about their future. Daniel Robertson reports from Amizmiz in Morocco.
Sirens, trucks, and children's cries. This is the soundtrack of life in a makeshift tent city.
These people are giving us food and blankets, and the people are helping as much as they can. And we don't know if it will end in a week, 1 year, 1 month. We don't know.
When supplies do arrive, people swarm, desperate for something to eat. A bag of rice is enough to make this little boy smile. It's a little comfort in a place where that's a rarity. Hamid Ashwalda and his family have been here for 5 nights. They have no other choice. He only just escaped his collapsing home with seconds to spare.
I was injured here, and my leg was hurt, and here also, you see.
This was his home, his cafe, his livelihood. Now there's nothing left.
When the earthquake first struck, we were on the 3rd floor. After that, it got stronger. I saw the building fall down. I had a bakery and 6 colleagues working with me. And the building now, as you see, there's nothing left.
The trauma prevents many people from wanting to go back indoors. And rightly so. There have been several small tremors here 5 days after the earthquake struck. It is unclear how long life here will go on like this. The people here can't plan for the future while the current situation is still developing, but it's likely people will be here for months. The agony only just beginning. For those who survived, they are now bracing for winter.
Please help us. If it starts raining, we'll suffer. Where will we stay? What will we eat? How will we sleep in bad weather?
Her fears of a long stay are confirmed as workers build a drainage pipe, preparing for a new toilet system to be installed. Saeed says he has little to do but pray.
Until now we are shocked. We don't believe it. You believe me? Still there is shock and I feel it in my heart. After staying here for months, the rain will come. After that time, we will see.
He, like most people here, is at pains to say he's grateful for the life he still gets to live, as the number of people who don't continues to climb. Danielle Robertson, Africa Matters, Amizmiz, Morocco.
Let's hear more from Benoit Carpentier. He is the spokesperson for the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. He joins me from Tamaloup. Thank you so much for making the time to speak to us. I understand how busy you are. What is the situation now, and what challenges are you facing while responding to this devastating emergency?
Thank you for having me. The situation is still dramatic, as you can imagine. We are talking about villages that have been almost wiped out. So people are in need of almost everything. They've lost their lives, basically. They've lost their houses, they've lost their income, they've lost their loved ones. So there's an amazing solidarity in country and internationally. So we are trying to do our best to reach all the remote villages, and that's one of the most difficult thing, because it's not centralized in one place. It's really hundreds of villages around in a very, very large area. So we need to make sure we reach out to everyone.
What would you say the most pressing need is right now?
One of the most pressing needs is going to be emergency shelter, to make sure that people have something on top of their head to sleep, and something warm, mattresses, blankets, warm clothes. The temperatures are going to drop very quickly in this area, sometimes to minus. So we need to make sure that very, very quickly people have something to keep warm. Then comes the food, clean water, and the health services, obviously.
And what kind of response have you been getting from donors and also from the Moroccan government? Because the Moroccan government has been very cautious about receiving humanitarian help from certain countries. Has that affected your aid operations?
The solidarity has been amazing from what I can see on the ground at the moment. We operate through the Moroccan Red Crescent, and they've been coordinating with the local authorities to deliver all the aid that is here. And the national solidarity has also been amazing. People have been collecting goods, sending goods to the mountains. Now it's much more coordinated, so goods are coming and goods are being delivered to people.
Winter is coming. What should the people and the international community should be worried about the most, and how should they respond to help those in need right now?
Well, yes, as you said, winter is coming. In some areas, they're expecting temperatures below -10 degrees. So you can imagine, if you don't have a roof for the house, how difficult that situation would be. You have entire families that are living in the streets, children, mothers, and women. So we need to make sure that these people have everything they need to keep warm. So that's what I was saying earlier: blanket, tents, mattresses, isolation, so that they are not on the floor. So that's the urgency before the winter.
Benoit, a devastation of this magnitude, one wonders about the country's preparedness. I mean, it's the country's deadliest earthquake in over 6 decades. What does the level of devastation say about the country's early warning systems?
There's no early warning for an earthquake. You cannot predict that the earthquake is coming. You can be prepared in terms of educating the population, making sure they have the right, they know what to do when the earthquake strikes. But you're very, very limited in what you can do. So we need to make sure that we provide the support as soon as possible. The preparedness is quite limited in that case.
Wow. Benoit Carpentier, thank you so much for speaking to Africa Matters, the spokesperson for the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. We wish you good luck, and we hope that you're able to bring the much-needed succor to the victims. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The number of migrants seeking asylum in Europe is likely to surpass 1 million people by the end of this year. European Union leaders are trying to step up efforts to stop migrants by striking deals with countries in the Middle East and North Africa. Migrants from other parts of Africa make their way to countries such as Tunisia, Algeria, and Libya to try to cross the Mediterranean Sea and then into Europe. They often use overcrowded boats to reach southern European countries such as Spain, Greece, or Italy. Our correspondent Joel Flynn reports from Lampedusa Island.
For migrants trying to make the perilous journey from Africa to Europe across the Mediterranean, there is one possession more precious than any other. In the desert, as at sea, a bottle of water can mean the difference between life and death. This group of would-be migrants outside the Libyan town of Al-Assa have just been given some relief by police. Tafwal Omar has travelled while pregnant all the way from Sudan, thousands of kilometres away.
I was in Tunisia with my husband trying to get to Italy, but the traffickers beat us before taking us to the border with Libya 2 days ago, where they beat us again and left us. We walked, but didn't know where we were going until the police found us and gave us water.
While some are failing to make the journey, many are succeeding. Corralled at the harbour front, large numbers were forced to stand outside for hours. Others who found shade talked about the ordeal of trying to get to Europe.
It's not easy. We took lots of risk to get here. We just arrived. Some were injured and had to go to the hospital. Someone hurt their knee. I was hurt too.
I was in my hometown in Sousse in Tunisia and then came here. There is no life there. Now it's time to heal. We spent 3 days on the water. We didn't eat anything or barely drink anything until today.
How did we get here? It was hard. It was not easy, but we made it in good health, and that's the important part.
The EU is trying to stem the flow of people into the bloc at the source. A €100 million deal with Tunisia in July this year was supposed to restrict crossings. It's not yet had any effect, however, and the number of people sailing across the sea is rising. Here in Lampedusa, Italian authorities are struggling to cope with the thousands of people that are arriving every day. But despite assistance from non-governmental organisations, NGOs themselves are also being targeted. Sea-Watch is one of those impacted. Its rescue vessel, the Aurora, was impounded by the Italian Coast Guard in August. That was over accusations it was dealing with multiple migrant boats and not one at a time, as prescribed by a new Italian law passed in February. Sea-Watch is also among those alleging that Italy and the European Union are complicit in human rights abuses committed by the Libyan Coast Guard.
Every time we take off from Lampedusa with our aircraft, we reach the Libyan search and rescue area. What we are prepared to see is continuous illegal pushbacks operated by the so-called Libyan Coast Guard using patrol boats that were donated by Italy.
Amnesty International has echoed this criticism earlier this year, demanding an end to EU and Italian cooperation deals with Libya worth tens of millions of euros. European countries might want to stop people trying to cross illegally, but for those willing to risk their lives, deterrence may prove to be impossible. Joel Flynn, Africa Matters, Lampedusa, Italy.
To Israel now, where Eritrean asylum seekers are facing an uncertain future following a riot early this month between two rival groups in Tel Aviv. While many think that the incident won't be repeated, Israeli police have now shut some Eritrean churches, saying they may be used as bases for more unrest. Mustafa Fatih Yavuz reports.
The south of Tel Aviv is calm now. This is where around 30,000 asylum seekers from Eritrea and Sudan live. But on the 2nd of September, this place was a center of clashes between two rival Eritrean groups. Fighting broke out during celebrations of the 30th anniversary of the Eritrean president's rise to power. Those who supported the Eritrean regime wore red, and opponents wore blue.
I feel sad because I saw a lot of people have been injured, and I feel sad. It is both of them are from my community.
This event left us shaken. We are ashamed about it, and we are hurting. We are hurting, and we are also afraid and feel insecure in the country. We can't. Where further can we run to? We ran away from persecution in our country. and the dictator regime continues to persecute us, to silence us.
At least 170 people were injured in the clashes, and the Israeli security forces arrested 53 Eritreans suspected of being involved. After the incident, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said his government is now considering their deportation.
We are seeking strong steps against the rioters, including the immediate expulsion of those who took part. It is hard for me to understand why would we have a problem with those who declare that they support the regime. They certainly cannot claim refugee status.
While many think that the riot won't be repeated, Israeli police say they have received intelligence to suggest Eritrean protesters may return to Tel Aviv and may also attend church services, wearing white to camouflage their movements. This has prompted Israeli police to temporarily close 4 Eritrean churches in the city. Besides Netanyahu, Israel's far-right politicians and voters also think all asylum seekers should leave the country, with some even calling them invaders. While the chants for deportations are growing louder, the UN Refugee Agency says deporting asylum seekers en masse is unlawful, which leaves Benjamin Netanyahu torn between abiding by international law and demands from his voter base. Mustafa Fatih, Tel Aviv.
We head to East Africa now, where Kenya's President William Ruto has begun his second year in office after winning the election last August. He promised to rebuild the economy, reduce public debt, create jobs, and provide affordable housing. So, how has his administration done after a year on the job? Alessandra Majala finds out.
President William Ruto came into office on a campaign that offered a bottom-up economic plan that would revive the economy and boost incomes for informal businesses. A year in, and that picture looks very different. Both commodity prices and taxes are up, while people's purchasing power is down.
When people cannot afford $1 million a day, majority of the population cannot afford $1 million a day, then that tells us how the situation is. It's very worse because prices of essential commodities are so high.
Kenya, East Africa's commercial hub, wasn't spared the economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic, nor the impact of the war in Ukraine that has shaken economies around the world. But its recovery has also been hindered by a record-breaking drought.
As a result of the current financial and economic policies, we are seeing an increase in bank interest rates. Why? Because this has not started now. The Kenyan government, since 2013, shifted and borrows more from the economic banking sector.
Data from the country's treasury shows that Kenya is saddled with $70 billion worth of public debt, and the shilling has lost 30% of its value against the dollar in 18 months. Growth has slowed and is forecast this year to be lower than the 4.8% recorded last year, as government corruption continues to chip away at public coffers. Global rating agency Fitch has downgraded Kenya's credit status to negative over deteriorating macroeconomic conditions, implying that taxpayers will pay more for loans procured by the government from international financial markets. As Ruto's administration enters its second year in office, Kenyans continue to look to the government to usher in easier economic times. The rising cost of living has led to widespread anger. In July, opposition leader Raila Odinga orchestrated 10 days of protests that turned violent, leaving dozens dead. Bipartisan talks on how to solve the economic crisis are underway. That's left some of the president's supporters questioning his capability to make good on his promises.
Again, he promised us that in his first year, he will create more than 5 million jobs. But I can confirm for you that he has not created even 1,000 jobs.
In his first year, Ruto has cultivated an image on the world stage as a champion of the environment and a crusader for reform of global lending institutions. But back home, many people are now disillusioned with having to pay for the rising food, fuel, and electricity prices with less money in their pockets. Alexandria Majala, Africa Matters, Nairobi, Kenya.
Today, we're exploring Sousse, a coastal city in eastern Tunisia. It's the country's third largest and is known as the Pearl of the Sahel, with its well-preserved old city and a history dating back to the 11th century BC. Have a look. And that's our show this week. Kindly share your thoughts and suggestions about the stories you've seen on this episode, or ideas on what you would like us to cover on X, formerly known as Twitter, using the hashtag #AfricaMatters. Feel free to reach out to me on my personal handle @AdeshawaJosh. You can watch this episode and more on YouTube. Just search Africa Matters, TRT World. Like, comment, and don't forget to share. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you next week.